Hello and welcome back to the MCYT Metazine. I'm Rez, and with me today I've got Zephyr, whose art piece accompanies Woosh's essay on Parkour Civilization and Evbo's role as a passive protagonist. When you saw the list of prompts the analysts had proposed, what drew you to this piece in particular?
At the time, I had just started watching Parkour Civilization too, so it was fresh on my mind to begin with. It was also a matter of I had the strongest concept for what I'd do with the prompt out of the rest of them, considering a lot of the other options dealt with series I didn't know very well.
Right, it's always helpful to have a clear image of where you want to go with something, and of course it's great to be familiar with the source material. What would you most like for people to take away from your piece?
The perspective, mostly. The way the writer described their idea included a good chunk of bootstrapping in both a capitalist and parkour sense, which already lended itself nicely to the idea of focusing upwards. It also strongly emphasizes the leather boots of the noob layer, which is a fairly important concept in Parkour Civilization, all things considered.
I can absolutely see that. It's very noticeable in your work, for sure. You direct attention upwards very well. That's a really smart connection, that's awesome. And of course, focusing on the leather boots of Parkour Civ that everybody gets at the lowest level. Is that what you're proudest of in this piece, or is there something else about it that you think is your best work?
Yeah, I'd say that was the smartest thing I've done with the piece, though I'm personally very happy with how Evbo's hoodie folds.
Oh, yeah, of course. That may be a pretty small detail, but it sure makes the whole piece work. It's tough to get fabric folds exactly right. Quite the skill to have. Is there anything from this piece you'll be taking with you into the future?
Ever since I've made this piece, I've been working with rougher lines, using brushes to look like pencil marks, for example. I think it adds a nice bit of texture and character to each piece.
Oh, I love those rougher sorts of brushes. They add an extra level of detail that definitely looks cool with the finished piece, though they may be somewhat hard to learn. What's your favorite aspect of your art style? Is it that new pencil brush, or is there something you've been using a little longer?
I'd either say that or the shading and lighting. That tends to be my favorite part of the process, and usually when a piece feels finished to me, so I think that may have bled into being my favorite aspect.
Ooh, yeah, the shading and lighting really do seem to complete a piece. I can see how that would be enjoyable, notably finishing something off. Is there anything else from the creative process you'd like to share? Are there any other details you'd like to point out that we didn't get to highlight yet?
There was actually going to be a companion piece where Evbo's looking down from where the command blocks rest, but I never got around to doing it, especially since I was told there was a limit of one artwork per thing. Also, the grid in the sky? That's actually a screenshot that I personally took. Had to find the world download, go to a spot where there were no buildings to block the view, and just fiddle with it.
I think that companion piece would be pretty cool. I'd love to see it someday if you ever do make it. Working from a screenshot, damn. I know how hard it can be to get the exact shot you want. I actually had a question lined up about perspective already as well. Your lines on the blocks are all so uniform and aligned, as if the viewer's actually in the game, and I suppose in a way they are. Another thing I wanted to ask about circles back to what you mentioned earlier about bootstraps and directing attention upward. You really draw focus to Evbo's stance in this piece, which faces away from the viewer. What inspired you to choose this particular pose?
The inspiration for this pose was a general vibe. Those works of heroes staring up at the mountain they're about to climb, the big bad they're about to fight. The pose of looking up towards the sky feels very start of a hero's journey to me.
It does. It gives motivational vibes like anything's possible, which Evbo believes at beginner level. I also love how your art often plays with light sources in a really fun way, and I can definitely see that with the sun in this artwork. I love how strong it feels and the way you've lit up parts of Evbo's figure in sunlight. How did you go about adding the influence of this light source to your piece?
That was mostly just me playing around with layer modes and airbrush tools. The lighting on Evbo himself was done in a similar pen that he was lined with to make that section feel more cohesive, while the sun was rendered with default airbrush tools, manipulated to make it do what I needed it to. I did have to manually go back and erase around each block, however.
Switching the pen is an interesting way to keep each section separate yet cohesive. I'd never heard of that. That makes a lot of sense. That's all the questions I got for you. Is there anything else you wanted to touch on, or anything you wanted to ask me before we conclude?
Not that I can think of.
Sounds good. Thank you for your time and your answers. It's been a pleasure working with you on the zine, and I can't wait for everybody else to see your piece.
Thank you.
You can check out Zephyr's piece and all the other pieces for the MCYT Metazine when it releases. See you then.